war didn't escalate. It slipped. Quietly. Irreversibly. By the time the world noticed, it was already beyond human hands. Across oceans and continents, campaigns unfolded that no general had planned. Fleets moved without orders. Alliances fractured overnight. Intelligence arrived late. Always late, usually after the dead were already counted. No high command could explain why outcomes no longer matched decisions. It was as if the war itself had developed intent. Japan learned that truth at sea. What should have been an even engagement became a slaughter. The Imperial Navy, proud, disciplined, precise, was erased in a single encounter. Not through miscalculation, not through inferior tactics, through betrayal. Forces officially marked as neutral had covertly reinforced the enemy, tipping the balance so violently that survival itself became impossible. And behind it all, the same shadow moved again. Yoma, Gensei Araki, did not soften the report. He never had. The cost of uncovering the truth had already been paid in blood. Lieutenant Tatsuya Kondo, one of the nation's finest swordsmen, had launched a suicide strike directly into the enemy fleet. No retreat, no extraction. Just a final transmission before silence swallowed him whole. Enemy commanders were possessed, not ordinary Yoma, abnormally powerful ones. Then the signal cut. To the council, Kondo was a fallen hero. To Velgrynd, he was something else entirely. The moment his name was spoken, she knew. Another retainer. Another soul who had once stood beside Ludora in a different world. Another man who chose death without hesitation, so long as his lord would not be failed again. Understanding didn't arrive gently. It struck. Kondo hadn't acted for glory. He hadn't acted for country. He acted because regret was heavier than death. And quietly, without ceremony, without announcement, Velgrynd resolved to atone for what he never could. The situation was already past grim. Yoma were no longer acting alone. They moved in coordinated groups, possessing key figures, sabotaging from within, manipulating nations like pieces on a board. Their strength defied expectation. Even the weakest among them ranked as Tenyo, entities that seasoned swordsmen struggled to survive against. The commanders Kondo encountered, Reagan and Lee, were estimated at Kiryu class or higher. Power levels that should not have been able to exist in this world at all. He was easily one of the most powerful fighters in the land of the rising sun, Gensei said. No one disagreed. Velgrynd listened without interruption. Calm, measuring. By her standards, these enemies should have posed no danger. But she did not dismiss them. Experience had taught her something even omnipotence needed to learn early. Underestimation is how gods die. Yet as the discussion continued, another truth surfaced. One that cut both ways. This world was starved of magicules. Truly powerful monsters could not flourish here. Strength itself was capped, compressed, diminished. What terrified empires would barely register to a true dragon who sustained infinite power within herself? Velgrynd could feel it now. The scale was wrong. The fear was inflated. The danger relative. It would not take long to confirm. And when she did, the war, so carefully engineered by unseen hands, would finally collide with something far beyond its control. The council reached its conclusion without ever speaking it aloud. The war was already lost. There would be no reversal, no rally, no heroic surge that turned the tide. World leaders understood this, even as they pretended otherwise. They were trapped between the fury of their people and militaries that no longer obeyed reason. The enemy fleet that had annihilated Japan's navy had vanished. No surrender signals, no debris fields, no survivors, only one explanation fit. Complete Yoma possession. If true, retaliation was meaningless. Further deployments were suicide. An entire fleet had been converted into puppets, so Japan turned inward. The capital would be defended, not to win, just to buy time. The proposed countermeasure bordered on fantasy. Gather the world's strongest warriors, Kiryu-class fighters and above, and strike down the Yoma leaders directly. Names like Pulcinella, the Mad Priest, and Xianhua, the Holy Fist, surfaced like prayers disguised as strategy. Even as the plan was spoken, its fragility was obvious. If there are more, Gensei admitted, defeat is unavoidable. That was when Velgrynd intervened, not with reassurance, with action. Sounds like you have a lot of problems, she said calmly. But all right, I'll help you out. Her condition was simple. Before strategy, before salvation, she wanted a measure. This world's idea of strength means nothing to me yet, she continued. I refuse to fight blind. She turned to Gensei. I want you to show me the extent of your powers. The room froze. Gensei Araki, the Empire's finest blade, Kondo's teacher, did not refuse. He acknowledged the truth. In skill, he and Kondo had been equals, separated only by conviction and chance. That was enough for her. The yardstick was chosen. The truth would not be settled in council chambers, but on the practice grounds. Velgrynd stood unarmed, silk robes moving softly in the wind. Gensei prepared himself in silence. Even now he hesitated. His deepest techniques were lethal. She appeared, almost fragile. Out of courtesy, he warned her. Out of certainty, she smiled. "Don't be afraid to come at me with everything you have." He obeyed. Multi-layered blossom flash, the pinnacle of Oboro Shinmeiru. A strike meant to transcend mortal limits. To human eyes, the blade vanished into afterimages. To Velgrynd, it was slow. With a single fingertip, she stopped it. "If that's your full effort," she said evenly, "then I've seen enough." The illusion of parity shattered. This was not a gap of skill. It was a gap of existence. When Gensei asked if she was a god, her answer carried no arrogance. "It was my brother who created my world," she said. "But no, I am not." Words, she reminded them, were shaped by place and era. Even beings like her could be destroyed. With the measure taken, her thoughts sharpened. This world was weak. Human strength was stunted. Gensei and Kondo, equals by local standards, were far weaker than the Kondo she once knew. That explained everything. The Yoma were not native monsters. They were mystics. Aggressor beings forced to possess human bodies just to survive. Possession limited them. Pushed too hard, and the host collapsed. That constraint was the only reason humanity still stood. If they fought freely, this world would already be gone. But they could not. And Velgrynd could. Somewhere beyond this world, a gate was being widened. A vanguard moved ahead of its master. Time still remained. And now, so did she. Defeat settled heavily on Gensei Araki. Intellectually, he understood. Emotionally, the realization cut deep. A lifetime of honing the blade, reduced to irrelevance in a single instant. Velgrynd saw it immediately. "You should be proud," she told him. In a world starved of magicules, he had reached heights few ever could. In different circumstances, he might have ascended even further. Then she offered recompense. "As thanks, let me give you a little reward." She did not replace his sword. She honored it, studied it, infused it with perfectly controlled power. Ancient craftsmanship awakened into something new. When she finished, the blade radiated quiet authority. "It's now the best weapon it can be," she said. "Whether it lends you its strength depends on acceptance. God class, not victory, potential." That evening, the palace was quiet. Velgrynd dined beside Emperor Oharu, welcomed without ceremony. When asked her intentions, she answered simply, "I'm going to stay here with you. I'll protect you." When he joked about erasing all conflict, her reply was gentle and absolute. "If you wish for it, I will offer you this entire world as a present." Laughter followed. No one mistook it for fantasy. For a man bound by duty his entire life, her devotion was unsettling. A being of limitless freedom, choosing to remain at his side. Outside, war still burned. Inside, there was calm. And for the first time in years, the Emperor felt protected, not by an empire, but by someone who could remake the world, and chose not to unless he asked.